Hi everybody! What you see behind me in the background of this video is the result of several algorithms commonly used in creating shader effects. Specifically, it involves the Voronoi diagram, a pseudorandom vector generator, and a custom color palette. If you like this effect and would like to use it in your own Godot game, keep watching. I will demonstrate and explain how to create it from scratch. So, what is the Voronoi diagram actually? As usual, let's turn to the relevant Wikipedia page where we can find, just a moment, where we can find that it is a partitioning of a plane into regions based on a simple rule of finding the boundary between the closest points. If you are interested in details, be sure to read this page. I'll briefly summarize it now. So let's open this picture and first we create a certain number of points, these black points, in the given area. Their positions are usually random. Then for each point, like this one, we will find a connection to another neighboring point, like this one, and in the middle of the connection, over there, we create a perpendicular line as a boundary, this line. Then we continue with the remaining neighboring points, like this in blue and this in green. So we would have this new line, and each time the lines intersect somewhere, we will just interrupt them. So it goes only over there and over there, creating these kind of polygons. And that's essentially it. The result will be the division of the plane into irregular polygons, we can see here, and these polygons completely fill the plane. Such a pattern is often found in nature, for example on tree leaves, turtle shells, or snake scales, and so on. In our case, Voronoi will serve us to generate original visual effects, especially when enhanced with colors and animation, as we could see at the beginning of this video. Alright, let's get into coding. I will switch back to Godot, and as usual, we'll start with a new 2D scene in the Scenes folder. Right-click, create new, and scene. Let's call it Voronoi. Okay. Now I will add a colorect as a child node and open it in the inspector. We need to set the layout, and we usually choose a 600 by 400. Okay, and now the material, which will be a new shader material. Click and create a new shader, which is canvas item, Voronoi GD shader, but we'll put it to the shaders folder. And create and click to open it in the editor. Okay. And now we will add the usual header. So the canvas item we already have there. Let's delete the vertex function as we don't need it, and the light function. And we need to work with the resolution because this is not a square, it's a rectangle, so we need to set the correct aspect ratio. Uniform vec2 resolution, and let's give it the default value, which is equivalent to our actual dimensions of this colorect, which is 600 by 400. Okay. Very well. To better understand how we will gradually achieve the final effect, let's start with a single point. We will insert this line to the fragment function. So first we need to define the UV coordinates and move the origin to the center because as we know, in UV coordinates, 0, 0 is the top left corner and 1, 1 is bottom right, but we want 0, 0 in the middle. That's why we are subtracting 0.5 from both coordinates. Okay, so we move origin to the center. Now we need to fix the aspect ratio because x is longer than y, which means we need to fix the x1. uv dot x will be multiplied by resolution x divided by resolution y. Good. Okay, let's start with defining the vector that will be used to calculate the final color of the given pixel. We'll call it, for example, n, and the initial value would be just a 0 vector. And now to create a point, we need to calculate the length of this origin of the point from the actual pixel. So it would be float d for distance or something like that is the length uv minus n. And that's it. Finally, we need to create a color, so it would be vector 3 col and vector 3 with all components equal to d, so it would be some shade of gray. And we need to assign that to the built-in variable color, which is vector 4 because it contains the alpha value as well. So col and alpha will set to 1. Let's wait for it. Yeah, we have a black point right here, and then gradually goes to lighter shades of gray until it reaches 1, which is white. So 1 point is certainly a good start, but we are far from the Voronoi diagram right now. Let's add the second one. And since we now have 2 points, we need to calculate the distance to each of them for every pixel and use the smallest value. Let me show you. So we will put this to a cycle, so we don't need to do a lot of copy paste of the code. And as I said, we will working with the smallest value of the distance. So let's define min dist that would start at some sufficiently high number to start searching for the nearest cell, nearest point, I mean. Let's start with 100. And now the cycle, so for float x from 0 to 1, as we need only 2 points at this moment, x plus plus. And what we want to put to the cycle is everything except the final assignment of the color. Sorry. Let's put it over there. So this time we don't use 0, but we'll work with x. And what's wrong here? Float in, of course, it must be float as well. Good. So we will define the distance, it stays as before, and now we need to find the smallest value. So if d is less than our current min dist, which will always be for the first time because the initial value is pretty high, 100, so we will set a new one. Min dist is d. And of course we need to work with min dist now because d is defined inside the cycle, it doesn't exist outside of that. So here min dist, let's wait for it. Yeah, 1, and the second one is over here. We cannot see it, so let's change the zoom factor, make it let's do this. So we need to multiply uv by some number. Let's start with 2 to see what we can see. Yeah, now we can see both of them. Perhaps it would be even better if we multiply by 5. Yeah, now we have 2 points And as we could have seen at the Voronoi diagram, this is the boundary. We'll be talking about the connection between 2 points and the perpendicular line. So this is the basis of our algorithm. We could continue like this. For example, we can change the number of points to 3. Now let's do this like 2, and there is the third one. But if we don't make any changes to the code, the next points will be added linearly in this direction. That wouldn't be very advantageous, so it's time to implement a pseudorandom element. The following function is one of the well-known and frequently used algorithms, so I'll insert it using copy and paste to avoid unnecessary typos. Let me just do it right here, Control V. Okay. So, just to know that for each input, value vector 2, p, it returns a pseudorandom vector 2 in the range from 0 to 1. So let's apply this function in our cycle. As an argument, we will use the vector x and increase the number of points to 20. So first, I will just apply it here. It's n22 with this argument. And as I said, let's increase that to 20. Okay, this looks better, especially when we change the zoom factor to see more details, like put it to 3, for example. Yeah, we can see more details, definitely. However, this approach is not exactly optimal. As we can see, for each pixel in the fragment function, we are comparing to all points right here, even to those for which it doesn't make sense. For example, points on the opposite sides of our colorect. So we'll discard part of this algorithm and make some optimizations. I'll start by dividing the points into a grid to ensure their uniform distribution and consequently a better looking Voronoi diagram. We can achieve the grid easily using the floor and fract functions applied to the UV coordinates. Then we'll calculate the distance only for the neighboring points, so in a 3x3 matrix, similar to the previous video that dealt with edge selection. Let's do it. I'll just get back to our previous zoom factor, and now we will define new variables. It would be, as I said, the grid which we want to use to distribute the points. So I'll start with grid coordinations, grid chords, which is the floor value of UV, the integer part. So we have the evenly distributed grid, and the second one would be the position of the particular grid cell, which we'll set to grid UV will set to fract UV, which is the fractional part, always between 0 and 1. Okay, and now we will get rid of this cycle because we no longer would be cycling through all points, but only the neighbors in the matrix 3x3. So we need this for float y starts at -1. You might remember this two nested cycles from the previous video. It's exactly the same, y++, and the second cycle, let me just shift all these lines to the right. Okay, the second would be again from -1 to 1 and x++. Okay, and we no longer work with only x, but we have y as well. So let's change this vector to this one and get rid of the random factor for a while, because we want to start with the grid and it would be better looking without that. Vec2, x and y. Okay, we are already seeing this grid, but it's not finished yet, of course. Now we need to use the grid coordinates in this calculation of the length. Let's see, and here it is. We filled the whole plane, the whole area with our new grid, and the number of calculation is always the same. For each pixel it will be only 9, no matter what kind of zoom factor we would use. Great, the grid looks good. Let's make one more small change. As we can see, one of the points is placed exactly in the center, this one, while our effect will look better if we place the intersection, this point, of the boundaries in the center. We'll achieve that by simply subtracting 0.5 from the grid UV. Minus 0.5, wait for it, yeah, it shifted, and it's here. We are very close to the result. It is in fact also a Voronoi diagram, but applied to a regular spaced points, so it doesn't look particularly interesting. Let's bring back the pseudorandom factor into play. So we will put it where? Here, to grid coordinates. No, we need to do more things, so we won't repeat a lot of code. Let's first define this as offset, because this is actually offset in the grid to the left, to the right, and so on. Now, in our new definition of n would be the function and equals n22 applied to this offset, but plus grid coordinates, because we are working inside the grid cell. And finally, as you can see, this is not entirely correct. We need to apply a shift of the neighboring cell, which we will define as a new parameter, a new variable p, vector 2, which is offset plus n. Okay, almost there. Of course, we created a new variable p, we need to use it right here. And this is the Voronoi diagram. Here we have it. Two things remain: adding animation and enhancing the colors. The animation should be periodic, so our points don't escape to infinity, making trigonometric functions an obvious choice. So first, to animate something, we need time. So I will add time variable right here to the top. Float time, let's set to internal time for the time being. And the second thing is to use it in this calculation. So it would be offset plus n, but this time we will apply the trigonometric function and multiply that by time. Wait, and it's moving. Our effect is animating, but something is not quite right. Can you see these artifacts, these boundaries? So how to get rid of these unwanted edges? This is because the sine function returns values from -1 to 1, so the sum is then outside the expected range. We can easily solve this by using half the value of the sine. Let's just multiply that by 0.5 and wait. Now this is perfect. Maybe it's too fast, so let's just slow it down by the factor of 2, so multiplied by half. Okay, this is very nice. As for colors, we will add a function to the shader for generating a palette, which we've used before when creating fractals or other ornaments. I will set the parameter values right away to achieve the same effect as at the beginning of the video. And of course, I won't just type it again, let me paste it. Here it is. 4 input parameters with preset colors and the palette function. If we just open it in the inspector, we should see in shader parameters these colors, which we can then modify as we want to achieve different effects. So all that's left is to use the palette to set the final color of the pixel. So where it is here, let's define vector 3, let's call it P, is palette, and now the parameters. Let's try this. We want to work with the min dist as the first argument, and then our colors. Color A, color B, color C, and color D here, and semicolon. By the way, it is perfectly okay to use the same name of the variable P and P here, because the scope of this first P is only within the cycle. It doesn't exist outside that, so the compiler won't complain about using the same name over there. And of course we need to use it instead of the min dist. Okay, it's colorized. But you may remember that the points were smaller in the showcase at the beginning of the video, so I think that I used a square root over there to achieve a better effect. SQRT of the min dist, and here it is. Of course, you can set the palette as you like, experiment with color values right here, basically anything you prefer. And the final effect is definitely worth trying and understanding. By the way, you may wonder why I just create vector 3 over there and then apply it to create another vector 3. There is no reason for that, I just didn't realize it, so let's fix it, create it as a col, and let's delete this line, and it should be working in the same way. Perfect. Thank you for your time, and if you enjoyed the video, I would greatly appreciate any support to help this channel thrive, whether it's subscribing, liking, sharing, or even getting my book on game development in Godot 4. Anyway, I wish you much success with your games and see you in the next video.